Hi guys, this is 5 Hacking Tips by Kurt and SysRisk. Just chiming in a little bit today to go through today's stream was scheduled at 1, but I'm pre-recording it and maybe streaming it later, or I don't know, maybe just stream it right away. Whatever works easiest. So this is one subject I wanted to touch on. It came up on LinkedIn a couple times over the last 6 months, and it's come up just like came up on Twitter even before that. And it's it comes up because there's a topic around a cybersecurity career or something like that, and somebody says something about a certain role, and I don't see it as a cybersecurity role, and I think it's or it might be something that just deserves a whole different discussion, or it'll come up when the topic of certifications comes around. Which certification for which, what's my path, and this is just to clarify kind of what I mean when I say cybersecurity and what I think is GRC. So GRC, as it is basically governance, risk, and compliance. And to tell you the truth, the first at least 6 years of my career were that. I was an IT auditor and then also a security auditor, but mostly worked with like internal audit and doing those kind of business process reviews and that kind of thing on the risk and compliance, and then also looking at IT governance side. And at one point, on a couple of occasions, ran the role of information risk manager. And that's a role that I think that probably on that side of the house ties over better with what I think is cybersecurity, or what would be a quote unquote cybersecurity role. So that takes me like to the next slide. And this is a generalization. Each organization has their own setup, but this is generally the way that I would see how information security is laid out. It's basically, on one side, you have what is the information risk management side, and on the other side, you have basically security operations. And there are various other things on both sides that are not included here. For example, on the left side, I say tech compliance, but there's the whole sec DevOps side of things, that and tracking those risks, the development related risks. I have under IT governance, I have development here, but that doesn't talk about the governance around, for example, whether you're going to use a waterfall SDLC, or you're going to use an agile approach to development. There's various things that would be able to be added to this depending on the organization. And on the right side, of course, like I don't have pen testing, I don't have red teaming, I don't have blue teaming, I don't have a lot of detail in there. But generally, this is the way that I see the two, what you would call a cybersecurity role, which is on the right here, maybe your left, and I don't know how that works. And then on the other side, information risk management, which is not cybersecurity. In fact, it's totally different. And the certifications that would apply here would be like the CISA, the CISM would be a good one. And even like the CIA, the internal audit certification, to understand the general risk approach across the organization. And the one area where it does come together is at the information risk manager, where there is an IT risk managed emergency response, or what we'd call like a threat response. That's where they do come together. Like as the information risk manager, you do have exposure to the incidents, and sometimes on a deeper level. A particular global insurance company that I know of, they tie it together where all incidents go to information risk management on the left side here, and it comes together with the incident response people that are on the security ops side. Okay, so that's that. So when I talk about cybersecurity roles, now you know. So yeah, this area that gets, forgot to added some animation there. So that's where that is. So that's kind of it. It's not a rant. It's just the clarification of like when I'm talking about cybersecurity, what I mean versus what I'm talking about when I'm talking about GRC or information risk management. Um, for a couple other tips. Okay, so I often comment a lot on around malware dev and what I've discovered like over the last year. I mean, I've spent a lot of time over the last 5 years and even before that around creating malware, not necessarily malware, but basically breaking things, reversing things, and then also bypass is another thing that I've looked at. But most recently, I guess for the last 2.5, 3 years, really focused on software-based malware. And one thing I've taken this Sector 7 Institute. It's listed here, third bullet from the top. It's really good. Check it out. I mean, the courses, just the C templates alone are worth it. But that's what I wanted to go on the first point, is really know your Win32 API and know the C calls on it and understand that really well, the very base documentation. Because when you get into DLL hooking and concepts like that, it really helps to understand what there is out there, and that's that. And to get to know the tools. So that was one thing I wanted to touch on today. Here, let me get out of presentation mode, share my desktop. Wrong desktop. Anyway, well, now I'll share it down here. So there's a couple of tools that I really like for Win32 hacking and creating malware on Win32. There's PE Bear. This speaks for itself. Google it. There's the resource hacker that comes in handy when you're going to embed stuff in picture parts and stuff like that. And then there's a good old x64 debug, and then of course there's x32 debug. That's sweet. And then this is my favorite. It's basically process hacker. So when you've created malware and you want to see that you've hooked onto something, you can see that. And of course there's the Helium hex editor hex thing. But I guess x64 debug, x32 debug is where I spend a lot of my time, and the other side is in process hacker. If I just want to look at my own piece of software and analyze it from a PE perspective, I use PE Bear, but that's more normally for looking at something else that I think might be malware. Or analyzing something that's already there to see if it would be, if there's room in the, either like in the resource area or in the text areas. It's a good place to look. So that's that. Let's see. Let me go back to the other thing I wanted to cover is, so a couple months ago, and it kind of ties up to here, I installed a Commando VM. It's available on the Mondiant GitHub. I had it right there. This is it. Basically, it's a great install. It's very easy. It's a PowerShell script, you basically download the ISO or the virtual machine, and then you run the PowerShell script, and it sets it up. And what it does is it basically sets up a Windows 10 setup that's completely decked out for hacking. It's a good tool to have in your VM library. So that's we'll call that tip number 4, because I think I provided a couple tips in there. And then tip number 5 or 6, whichever one is I came by this. This was a good find earlier on Facebook, actually. But what it is, it's an Active Directory exploitation cheat sheet. I went through it. It looks pretty recent. Also, it's actually good for AD enumeration. So I would actually retitle this if I were to rename it. I'd call it a enumeration and exploitation cheat sheet. These are always good things to have in your arsenal. A lot of people ask me how I come by these. A lot of times I come by these, I read a lot of them. I bookmark a lot of them too. But like for AD and Windows stuff, I'm very particular about what I keep in my cherry tree. So that's tip number 6, is I do log like any good commands or anything that I want to keep on hand, or steps that I've taken to crack a box. I may take that and very methodically include it in cherry tree. I keep a cherry tree outline of all of my information. That's enough for today. Like I say, anytime if you have any questions, feel free to hook up with me on chat or whatever. But remember, GRC is not cybersecurity, is not GRC. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.